Temple food is my name for what I eat when I need to feel my body is a temple, which, believe me, in the general run of things, it certainly isn't. And I don't mean diets or miracle cures. I mean that soothing, pure, restorative food that you optimistically make for yourself after one late night or binge too many. Don't ask. Now, this is not quite a temple food moment, but it's a very necessary preliminary purge. Prairie oyster, which is a drink made out of brandy, Liam Perrins, malt vinegar, Tabasco, and just when you thought it couldn't get any better, raw egg. It's meant to be the killer hangover cure of all time. I'll let you know. I'm not expecting this to be pleasurable, but I'm expecting it to make me feel better. The idea behind this is the egg yolk gives you a shot of protein, and the rest is just very necessary hair of the dog. Now the egg, yolk only, and it has to be swallowed whole. Now, based on the Nietzschean principle that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Ugh, I'm going back to bed. Breakfast. I want something light, refreshing, above all easy, and whatever time of day, the combination of blueberries and peaches goes incredibly well. When I'm not in a temple food moment, I make a peach and blueberry crumble, and when I am in more virtuous form, makes a really fabulous breakfast. Either just like this, just slicing the peaches into the blueberries, or with yoghurt. There's just something about the colours together, the yellowy orange and that almost black blue. And I think for sort of the whole temple food mood, the appearance of food can make such a difference. And I'm just talking about the colour, the natural beauty. I am never talking about all that ghastly effort. Now what I think makes all the difference is a bit of orange flower water. Really enhances the flavour of the fruit. Brings out the peachiness of the peaches and the blueberryness of the blueberries. Just tumble it together. And this is stage one, you know, perfect, simple, fresh breakfast. But sometimes you want something hot, and also because English peaches, to be frank, often are a bit unyielding and they need heat to make them luscious. Cooking makes all the difference, so just dollop some yoghurt on top. This is fat-free Greek yoghurt, but, you know, if you want to use full fat, be my guest. It's not often you'll see or hear me going fat-free. And then on top of that, the scantest sprinkling of demerara sugar. Now, sugar's not that temple food, I know, but you can use honey if you want. But to be honest, sugar, honey, in terms of fatteningness, exactly the same, and that's what we care about. The health issue is just a smokescreen, I feel. And what will happen once this goes in a hot oven is it will caramelise slightly on top, so it's like creme brulee for the dietetically virtuous. And that's it.
Even in my temple food days, I do not go in for fade picking or mimsy portions. In fact, the rougher I feel, the more I need to eat. And this salmon with shiitake mushrooms and Chinese greens is very substantial. Just put the salmon on the griddle, a dry one. If you oil it, it'll just smoke like hell. And anyway, you need it hot because it's when pans are not hot enough, not when they're too hot, within reason, that things stick. Right. Now, these shiitake mushrooms have very fibrous stalks, so you don't even want to trim them, just get rid of them. But it's the denseness of these mushrooms in a way that makes it go so well with the salmon, because salmon itself is very dense and meaty, and you need something that can stand up to it. Just slice them, not too delicately. You can see in these mushrooms, there's so beautiful, this contrast here between this sort of golden woodiness and this intense whiteness, very bouncy whiteness. Now these are cooked with the stalks of the greens in some groundnut oil with a bit of garlic. Now I always start garlic off, especially when it's minced, in cold oil, because if it's hot it'll just sizzle straight away and burn and therefore taste acrid, and what you need is that really mellow roundedness. Now the heat can go on. Now the useful thing about these greens, these are choy sam, is you're kind of getting two vegetables out of one, because you cook the stalks first, obviously they take longer than the leaves, along with the mushrooms, and then wilt the leaves on top afterwards, so very satisfying way of cooking. Okay, in with the mushrooms, and then these wonderful jade stems. Lid on. I've talked about the contrasts before, and actually you really need nothing else with this. I often like, however, to make a little sauce. Well, I say sauce, but you're not cooking anything. This is just English mustard made up with powder and water as you would normally, with a bit of soy sauce and then a bit of this ginger grated into it. And that really gives it zing. So these stalks of mushrooms just need a minute or so, and what's very pleasing is by the time these stalks are what the Americans call tender crisp, the salmon will be cooked perfectly, crispy on the outside with that coral trail within, which shows that it's slightly undercooked just within the centre. So we're ready to roll on this one. Just tear the leaves in, some soy sauce. Salmon is very oily and quite bland, and I like a lot of saltiness with it. And a few drops of toasted sesame oil. This has to be added last thing, otherwise you lose all that wonderful aromatic nuttiness. Just a few drops makes a huge difference. Quick stir to wilt the leaves. So this is perfect. Actually, it occurs to me now that one of the reasons why this is so pleasing is that, we're sticking to a natural palette, which is very calming, all that wonderful woody brownness and greenness. Then we can puncture that a bit with this great coral slab of salmon. Just look at that. I just love this sort of wonderful coral but tiger striped fish against the green, lovely glossy green of the choy sam. You can't eat this and not feel good. Part of my temple food moments for me really are in getting myself in the mood and reading, best way to do it. This book, Hot, Sour, Salty, Sweet, which is, as it says, a culinary journey through Southeast Asia, is ideal. I mean, the recipes are wonderful, and Southeast Asian food is food that's naturally high in flavour and low in calorie, and just what we're looking for. Oh, and this book, Vatch's Southeast Asian Cookbook, is wonderful, and I use it an awful lot to get myself in temple mood. There's a salad here, a Cambodian hot and sour beef salad, which is incredibly good, and it works so well with duck. Bit of rejiggling, it's perfect. Now, I know a slab of red meat is not everyone's idea of diet food, but I no longer subscribe to this kind of fanatical low-fat ethos, and I have to say, for that reason, I have left the fat on this piece of duck, because I adore duck fat, and I'm sure it's all very, very good for you. Now, the meat's on the board so that it will just sit for a while until the juices run through them back into the centre again, keeping it nice and moist. Now, this is really very simple and utterly delicious, which is start off with 2 tablespoonfuls of fish sauce, which I know sounds a bit odd, you know, the idea of fish sauce with duck, but it really is just salty, and that's what I want here, and it goes very well, because duck actually is very sweet. Now some fresh ginger. I don't bother to peel it when I grate it like this, and I suppose it goes with duck because I like Chinese cooking. Anyway, I love it. And here, southeast evocation of duck à l'orange here, some orange juice. Now, when I first made this, I used Seville orange. It was wonderfully bitter. And in fact, when duck à l'orange was first invented, it was with Seville oranges. I mean, sweet oranges just make it taste like jam. But now, since there aren't any Seville oranges about, I'm using some orange juice and lime just to give it that acerbic intensity, which is very good. Lovely. I mean, these are huge oranges here, so I haven't used that much. And then last, this orange chilli, which looks like it should be sort of lit up and hanging from a wine bar window. Okay. Now, there is no call for you to add any oil. You actually don't need it, but I like a teeny bit of this toasted sesame oil just because I like that sort of burnt nuttiness. Just a bit. I don't want greasiness. Now, this is a bit I really love. Some 80s fan-like carving of the duck breast. And actually, because duck is such a sort of dense and rich meat, it does really suit being sliced this thinly. And then this is the glorious bit. Just put all the thinly sliced bits of duck into this kind of marinade come dressing, and then pour over all the juices, in other words the blood, what we used to call red gravy at home, on top, and mix it all in. If you weren't watching, I'd be licking out this board now. Now just turn this like here in the dressing, and it sort of goes into the meat as well, so it's becomes its sort of marinade all that for a second, and then just strew the duck pieces and all that wonderful chili studded dressing goes on top. Fine little bit of vitamin C here by way of orange zest, just a teeny bit and very finely done so you don't just get chewy bits. Perfect, and this is just what a girl needs the evening after the night before.
How did you do that?
Do what?
Duck.
Olivia, we're mashing some avocados for our skin. Vitamin E.
I'd rather eat it, actually. Actually, it feels lovely.
It does look rather good on you.
Does it?
It sounds a bit mad.
Good fancy
Ah, no, it's very good.
It's rather cooling, isn't it?
Ah,
Careful, that
wonderful.
bit's going to fall. I think I've looked better, but
Ah, I feel healthier already. I'm not a Puritan. I want to eat and drink what I like and when I like. But there are times when purity can be a positive pleasure. A lot of people like food that's kind of unchallengingly bland when they need restoring, but I am completely different. I need fire and I need spice. And this is a hot and sour soup, tom yum soup. Now the base is a chicken stock. I like chicken stock as a base better than fish stock, but obviously you can suit yourself. And next comes some tom yum paste, which you can get at the supermarket. You can get all this stuff at the supermarket now. It's quite hot, so go steadily. Just whisk it in. All this is a mixture of chilli and citrus to give hot and sour. Fish sauce, and that's really the sour note in this hot and sour soup. It gets saltiness and adds a sour quality. And then to counter that, a bit of sugar, not a lot, about a teaspoon, but I'm not going to bother to measure it out. Now some lime leaves, which is an essential part of the sourness, a really deep toned sourness. It's also wonderful the way this clear broth really gets punctuated by all the spices and strips of green. And lime juice, which is in a way the same sourness but in a lighter tone, really wonderfully astringent. Lovely. Lemongrass, more sourness but slightly more delicate and fragrant. Short lengths and then in strips. Again, I like this thing of this clear, heady soup being punctured by the shards of flavourings. Now, I'm going to use a couple of chilies. You could do more. These are very hot, though, and obviously this is entirely a matter of taste. I'd rather use fewer and not really bother to seed them. Use red or green. I like red simply because there are so many other green things in here. And now mushrooms. And although it is a question of just throwing everything together in one pan, it isn't just a kind of as rough and ready as it sounds, because there is a very kind of delicate balance of flavours, although this is an intensely aromatic soup. Now prawns, which will turn a deeper coral any minute as they start to cook. You want them just cooked so they're still tender and sweet. Spring onions, again in the same idea of short lengths and then cut into strips. And now by the time this has really come back to a bubble, everything should be cooked. And I think what's so wonderful about this, you have this sort of depth and resonance of the broth, but really everything in it is barely cooked, so it's very fresh and tastes live. And then we're ready to decant. All we need now is some coriander. I'm not going to chop it or anything, I'm just going to pull leaves off almost whole. Beautiful, look how it comes to life now. It is so wonderful. It's light, but it's got such a hit. You can taste the limes and the chilies and the perfect balance of things within it, you know, with the prawns and the mushrooms and the spring onions, and very restoring, very light. Perfect. When I'm in temple mode, I have to make a kind of ceremony out of cooking and eating, and I also need to bulk up my meals with veg. I mean, often making it a separate course so the meal goes on for as long as possible. Now, whatever your dietary concerns, the best way to cook and eat cauliflower is just break this into florets, dust it with ground cumin, and dry bake it in a hot oven. I mean, it's incredibly good. Courgettes, what I like to do is just slice them lengthways, griddle them, and when they're tiger striped and tender, just douse them with lemon juice and carpet them with fresh mint. This really makes up for a lot of flavour which you don't have because there's no fat, and mint anyway is a crucial part of my Vietnamese chicken and mint salad. Now this salad is rather like coleslaw if you think grated cabbage and carrots. But instead of all that claggy mayonnaise, which is so not in our temple food mood, what there is instead is a really sharp, light dressing, much healthier, despite which I am starting off with 1.5 tablespoons of vegetable oil, the same of fish sauce. I mean, you could use soy sauce. What I'm after here is a really pungent saltiness. And another 1.5 tablespoons of rice vinegar. Now, a tablespoon in cooking is a precise measurement. It's 15 mils, and it's probably easier to think of it as 3 teaspoons. What I don't mean, and this is where I think difficulties occur, is a big serving spoon size. I'll just mix that together with my chopsticks. Lovely. Now a bit of garlic. Not too much. You want strength, but you don't want to be reeling. Raw garlic is strong. And a small bit of sugar. This gives a bit of balance, but if the idea of eating sugar appalls you when you're in this virtuous mode, then just don't add it. I mean, the carrots are sweet anyway, I suppose. Okay, a chilli. These Thai chilies are very hot, I mean, which is good here because, not least because I think that the stronger tasting of the food is, the less you're likely to eat of it, or that's a theory. And half an onion, just cut into fine half moons. If you've got time, leave this dressing all sort of macerate for half an hour or so, but if you haven't got time, do not lose sleep over it. Just drop these little pearly strings in, and then finally juice of half a lime. I mean, you may find you want to put the other half juice in, but I find half a lime does it brilliantly. Such a fresh tasting dressing because the lime and all those other sort of spiky flavours. A little stirring, and that's it. So, the mint. Now, the thing about the mint here is there's a lot of it, but it's almost like a salad leaf, not just a herb. And I do think that mint is so underrated here. We're all very coriander happy now, but fresh mint is wonderful. It gives you that pungency, but it's purer. Wakes you up as well. Okay, and then the chicken. Now, if you don't have a piece of cold chicken hanging about, then I suggest you just go out at lunchtime, if you can, and buy a piece of cooked chicken breast, because there's no point really just cooking chicken to let it get cold to use for this. I'm just slicing this thinly in strips, mainly because the cabbage and carrot are shredded, so I want it to be more or less the same dimensions, but just roughly. Final phase. Bit of cabbage. Now I've already grated the carrot, so it's just... more mint on top, and then plunge in. Now I think just a good crunch. Pleasure and virtue combined, and how rare is that? I can't honestly say that pudding is really a feature of the temple mode way of eating, but the thing is, you do need something to stave off that moment of despondency when you realise that eating is done for the day. And this is just papaya with raspberries and lime, so it's kind of zen. You know, nothing suety. Just treat the pawpaw papaya, same thing, like avocado. Scrape out these beautiful black seeds, and then tumble the raspberries into the cavity. Sounds dinky, I know, but when food is so sort of ceremonious, it does make you feel like you're eating more. Let me just switch to this so I can put more raspberries on the edge. And then just squeeze some lime juice over. This brings out the taste of the pawpaw, I mean, incredibly. I don't really eat this as a sort of part of a meal necessarily, but at night time it is a serenely greedy way of unwinding.